you guys hear me in the back? Perfect. So welcome. Was exciting previous presentation on Tesla. I want to give you kind of a background from a Trimble perspective. So this slide is not meant, there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience. It's not meant to be to talk about Trimble as a company, but to give you kind of a background is our founder came out of HP in 1978, a guy named Charlie Trimble. His vision, he really drove us to look at how do you apply GPS as a utility. And that allowed us to grow a business to about 250 million. So we started to build a fairly strong business going from zero, starting in a little theater downtown Los Altos, for those of you who know downtown Los Altos, where everybody was a coder to a salesperson to a support engineer. From that time, say in 1999, so from 1978 to 1999, we went from zero to say 250 million. We then took that thing, being GPS, and then combined it with other things like inertial navigation, other positioning components, laser systems, and looked at an entire work process. And that was important. That really transformed us as a company because we went from a single thing that we brought through many, many different industries to then bring it into specific industries and really look at changing a work process. And to me, that's the most valuable part of IoT, is there are a lot of cool things, whether that be that clicker or whether that be other things like a tire pressure sensor, but it's how they transform the work process that's important. And for us, we've looked at these industries that are circled around here called the connected site, where we've looked at how do those things then improve the productivity, improve the quality, and improve the safety. Okay? So you look at, say, the railway industry. What we do is we can take a look at the design of that railway track. That design could go all the way to the train. You can look at how does that train behave along that track, how you could detune that train or detune that engine. So we look at the entire work process, and we look then at a whole set of things and collect that data, and from that data do a set of analytics. This is not new to all of us, right? There's more and more connected things now than there are people. And really, it's going to go from an IoT to an IoE, or an Internet of Everything, at some point. So this market has become big, and it's really starting to transform many, many industries. From a Trimble perspective, we've looked at how do you apply it to the enterprise, and how do you use domain expertise within that enterprise to improve that productivity. Quick thing, Happy gave a presentation earlier in this conference that was quite interesting, and we think very similarly is, what does a thing do, right? We talk about IoT, and that's a cool buzzword, but what does a thing do? First, it needs to sense something, right? So if it's a tire pressure sensor, it needs to sense some tire pressure. Then it has to compute something. Maybe it does some analytics and says, here is the tire pressure of your existing tires. How does that then compare to, say, the standard tire pressure? Or how does that compare to a vehicle running under certain temperature conditions or running under some certain terrain conditions? Say in mining, that becomes very, very important. Then it has to have some level of connectivity. So a thing to us is something that senses, it's something that computes, and then it's something that connects. But in addition to that, for that thing to be used, it has to be easy to use, and it has to be useful. Okay, for any of you who stayed at the hotel today, I went to the gym in the morning, and I went to get a glass of water, and it has a thing that monitors the water. Okay, it wasn't easy to use. It took me a while to fill up a cup because you had to hold the cup in a certain way. A thing must be useful. A thing must be easy to use. So many, many different commercial or you're seeing consumer-based applications. This is just one of thousands to hundreds of thousands, right? So where you have a fork that says, you've just had too much cake. you're eating too much, right? I saw something on in the news this morning about a belt, and your belt tightens if you eat too much, right? So those are all cool, right? They're very, very cool. But what I want to concentrate is more on the enterprise side. And the enterprise side can be cool as well. Maybe it's not a fork, maybe it's not a belt, but here's Microsoft HoloLens, and we've been teaming up with Microsoft on the HoloLens project. And if you take a look at that, I can take a look at a model, right? Say a model of this room. And I have the architectural model, I have the design model. Now I want to go off and I want to do some asset management on that model, and I want to improve something. I need to go behind that wall and change some circuit. This will help guide me there, and in addition to that, it allows others to collaborate. Because what I have found is, as an Internet of Things provides a network to allow a network to collaborate, IoT also allows people to collaborate and allows people to change workflows where those workflows may have been around for centuries. Now that workflow changes because you have access to more information and information in real time. Agriculture. You're finding this connected farm concept become more and more prevalent throughout the world. What you're seeing is there's multiple different sensors, whether it could be weather sensors, whether it be sensors on irrigation or pivot irrigation or tape irrigation. You have sensors on tractors that sense the health or tell you where to spray, whether that be pesticide or herbicide. You collect all of that data comes back to a cloud environment where you can do analytics. So this is an example from a professional perspective that is happening today, where you have this connected farm, where it's connecting all of these different assets to create a dashboard. And from that dashboard, you can then take real-time decisions. And those real-time decisions can improve your yield. Those real-time decisions can have you better utilize water. Those real-time decisions can make you more money. So IoT can be a fork. It can be a belt, but it also can be an enterprise solution that improves that productivity. And you as entrepreneurs should be looking at not just the appliance of an IoT, but how that appliance changes and transforms the world. Here's kind of an output of that connected farm again. So it gives me what was the weather, what are the exact vehicles being used, what is the potential herbicide or pesticide prescription. So again, the connected farm in this particular example gives that connectivity and gives that visibility to a customer or a set of customers. And you could then potentially trace then that data all the way from the field all the way to that little happy fork that I showed before, right? That connectivity, that auditing of that data becomes more and more important. In addition to the IoT connecting to some back office or some cloud, it can also connect with itself. So in this example, two tractors can actually be communicating with each other, and they can be telling each other, here's what I'm doing, okay? Here is what I'm going to do next, so that you can efficiently then harvest or plant a field in a particular case. It's not just restricted to agriculture. If I look at it from a construction perspective or mining, you're finding this connectivity or this Internet of Things creating this ecosystem within construction, all the way from the design process out to the machine, to pushing dirt from one side of the road to the other, to laying pavement, to setting up the right route optimization for a specific truck going from point A to point B. So agriculture is one, but in construction we're seeing connectivity used as well. You're also starting to see autonomy more used in the machine business. So you hear of autonomous trucks, for example, in mining. IoT is not just a thing, it can be us. Here's an example of a specific customer wanted to know who was going in and out of a construction site from a safety and insurance perspective. So monitoring things, those things can have a heartbeat. Those things can be us, right? And how us or how we then interact with the rest of the ecosystem. So you're seeing more and more expansion of not just tracking a tractor or tracking a fork or giving you information on a fork or a belt. It's how we interact with that ecosystem or that enterprise. A couple other examples of in the building construction market. You can build now today, you can build an actual model of this room, and then from that model or that architectural or design model, bring that out and project that model onto the ceiling or project that model onto the wall so you know, where do I hang those HVAC hangers, or where do I put that specific lining in for some type of flooring element. So you're seeing connectivity change the workflow of industries. That's an important part, right? So if you look at it from an IoT perspective, it changes the workflow. Take the happy fork, right? Before the happy fork, how did we control our appetite? Our mom said, you're eating too much, stop, right? Or you read something where it says, Weight Watchers, you're too fat, quit eating, right? So we used other ways to control ourselves. That changed our workflow. That changed our eating habits. You're finding it in the construction industry, in the mining industry, in the agriculture industry. That connectivity is giving us more data to take more decisions in real time. The example on the left is a crane. So you have two cranes. So as those cranes are operating, there's a safety part. So you can actually look at, okay, how do those cranes then interact on a construction site? More importantly, say I'm putting a beam, right? We talked about in agriculture going from field to fork, right? Or field to happy fork in the future. So in the construction world, what about going from design and then knowing every single component in this building and where that came from? From an asset management perspective, you can really come down to knowing where then every bolt or where every beam is, or where did that air conditioning unit go? Where did that air conditioning unit come from? That's connectivity. That's connectivity in the enterprise area. That then allows us, right? That allows us to better manage our data. That allows us to better manage our lives. It allows us to better manage our enterprises. Connectivity, we've seen from Google Earth, right? Geospatial modeling or getting connectivity and getting a view of the Earth is becoming more and more real. Having a digital model of the world 20 years ago, people would have never thought that would have happened. Today, that is happening. It's happening through drone data. It's happening through scanning data, whether that scanning data be a tripod-mounted system or some vehicle-mounted system where billions and billions of points recreate a surface and give us a real-time as-built. All of you as entrepreneurs, it's okay to look at the Internet of Thing and the thing. But what I'd ask you to do is really look at how does that thing be used in a work process, and what does it change in that work process or enterprise? Because that is where productivity comes from, that is where value comes from, and that is changing the industry. The belt that tightens is good for us that eat too much. But changing the industry with where you see productivity advantages of 30 or thousands of percents and many times, change this world and transform this world. Thank you.